Welcome to the Bodybuilding Banter podcast, your number one source of all things bodybuilding. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on future episodes. Now, here's your host, Leroy Rollins.
All right, people, welcome to the Bodybuilding Banter podcast. We got an early one. I got this man out of bed nice and early so we could get this done on a Friday morning. But I don't think either one of us are a stranger to early morning, so it's all good. Introduce yourself to the people, my friend, and we'll get going.
I appreciate it, Leroy. Thanks for having me on. I know it was the last minute thing, but I've been actually meaning to reach out for a while, and because I've enjoyed your podcast. I listened with you talk with AJ, with who else did you talk with? I saw you talk with Josh Kenyon too, who's an animal. Yeah, James Johnson too. So I like the way you run this. I like the way you run your page. So appreciate having me on. Dan Cole, competitive bodybuilder, natural bodybuilder. First competitive season was last year, but I've been training for, depends how you define training. I grew up playing hockey growing up. I know you're a Canadian boy. I don't know if you played or not, but
I know about hockey.
I figured you knew a thing or two.
Yeah.
Trained for that. But so that was I'm trying to think about 12 years ago. So I picked up my first weight. Not seriously though.
Yep.
But it's been, I guess, consistently training for about 7 years, since about 2013.
Sure.
When I say consistently, I mean maybe 4 times a week at that point, and kind of scaled up over the years.
Totally.
So it's hard to define exactly when I started training and whatnot, but I've been in the iron game for quite some time now at this point.
Awesome.
So at this point right now, competitive goals are mostly in bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I've dabbled a little bit in the powerlifting side of things, not competitively, but with training the big lifts, peaking lifts, train for top end strength.
Yeah.
So I like getting under heavy loads, but at this point, I've realized bodybuilding is a little bit more up my alley, I guess, so to speak.
Sure.
I think I'm a little bit better at it, in all honesty. But haven't gotten away from all the heavy stuff, but kind of changed the focus a little bit.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Hopefully that gives a little bit of insight. Oh, by the way, if I tend to ramble or go to point D before I say A, B, C, I do that all the time. So
Sure.
don't hesitate to stop me if I do that.
It'll just give the listeners even more in-depth info about you, right?
Hopefully.
So what got you to bodybuilding? Like what was your kind of trigger to okay, I'm gonna take this seriously and hit the stage?
I mean, after playing hockey for a while, that ended. I had some concussion issues late into high school.
Yep.
Tried to play a little bit in college, but just realized it wasn't quite in the cards. I'd always been, like I said, I'd been in the gym, and I have kind of been all in or all out type of personality. Once I go in,
I think that's with all people that take bodybuilding seriously. I think we're extremists by nature.
It's an extreme sport, man. It really is.
Yeah.
But so just kind of started, taking it more seriously. Went through some tough stuff, in early in college. Just started training more, taking it more seriously.
Yep.
I think it's cliche, but like the iron, it's deeper than it appeared. Just lifting weights and all and whatnot.
It's more than just lifting, for sure.
There's deep personal meaning to it, I guess, so to speak, with it. So
yeah.
Love the iron game. And
what was your first season? Tell me about that.
First season was last year. Was 2018 or nope, not last year. 2 years ago now. It's 2020 now. 2018. Started my prep around May, really, of 2018. I think it was about 186 pounds, something like that.
Okay.
Kind of ran it on my own. I had been, tracking macros, running my training, all that sort of stuff. I knew how to cut weight. lose body fat.
Yep.
So ran that for about until about August or so,
Okay.
with on my own, so to speak. And again, this is me having to backtrack. I think around July, I started reaching out to like 3DMJ actually.
Nice.
So worked with them starting in August. Reached out to them in July, got it kind of all teed up, and started working with them in August. So worked with Brad Loomis of 3DMJ.
Cool.
All the way through my season. The show I'd been targeting, the first show was a Pittsburgh show. I am from Pittsburgh, so it was a local OCB show. That was on November. I should know the date. November 3rd, I think it was. So I gave myself plenty of time. So competed in classic physique in that show. Decided to do classic physique because I like the posing.
Sure.
Much simpler set of posing, I guess, than bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So just more straightforward to the point. So yeah, that's where I took that's where I took my season, or I was targeting that show originally from May all the way till November. So that was the first show I did. From there, I extended my season. I should talk about that show a little bit more before I continue. So that show I took first in the novice class and then third in the open. So I had a very successful first show. I think I was around 160 pounds. Okay. I think it was between 160, 165 pounds for my first show. I think my lowest weight was about 161 and then came up to about 164-ish, something like that, if I recall.
Yep.
So kind of fair bit of weight. I did very well in that show. My legs definitely needed to be quite a bit leaner. I hold a lot of fat in my legs.
Yep.
So after that show, I knew I was going to, target another show. I knew there were a few more OCB shows left in the season. Wanted to do a pro qualifier show. That's kind of what I was looking for. There were a couple options. The one that I ended up deciding on was the Hollywood show, out in California. Oh. So that was, I think, five weeks after. Yeah, it was I think 5 weeks exactly after that November 3rd show, December 8th. And then, so dropped quite a bit of weight from that first show into the second one. I think I lost another 7 pounds. Yeah, because my lowest weight in prep was about 154. Okay. Stage weight was about 158 or so after some carbs and filling out a little bit. But did really well in that show. I took since I had already won a novice class, I was only eligible for the open. Ultimate goal was to win an open class. I wanted to win more than anything else, really.
For sure.
Had been tunnel vision for a long time, which I think is kind of necessary to have if you're going to take it there, because what you get into with like physically, physiologically, hormonally is nasty stuff. So you've got to be able to basically just put that completely aside. So honestly, like at the time, I didn't even care. I didn't care at all. Like what it took. Like I didn't care about being hungry. I just had to do what I needed to do. So I did win that show. Won the open class in that show, which did win me my pro card in the OCB for classic. So
you didn't have to win the overall.
There was only one class, so it was just one class.
Gotcha.
So honestly, it was a pretty small show. I mean, it wasn't crazy big show, so can't say it was crazy competitive, crazy challenging to win. But I had no idea who was showing up, so just kind of I knew it was a pro qualifier. I didn't want to think about like conditional. I just wanted to show up and be able to execute and win. So awesome. End of the day, I think I did that. Brought pretty decent conditioning under Brad with 300J's wing. So
that's awesome, man.
And pretty good size, I think, as well.
Looking forward now, so we're 2 years later. What's the game plan?
Plan is to compete in probably 21 or 22. After having that marathon of the season in 2018, spending almost the entire year dieting.
Yeah.
I knew I needed to take some time away and gain some weight. 2019 was a pretty productive year for me for the most part. I mean, I've had my share of setbacks and stuff I'm fighting with, stuff I'm still fighting with now, like injury-wise. But in terms of productivity, it's been super productive. I'm up to about 193 pounds, holding decent body comp. Honestly, I think I put on almost 10 pounds of muscle in 2019 relative to where I was in 18, which is I'm very happy with. A lot of that I credit to, sleep. I didn't sleep too well in the past. Really cleaning that up, and we kind of touched that. I'm an early to bed, early riser at this point, so getting 8+ hours of sleep a night makes a big difference. It's a game changer.
Yeah, I was the exact same way. You mentioned sleep. Like, I've always been, as most bodybuilders are that take it seriously, like, food's never an issue, whether I'm starving or not. I'll track everything. Everything's weighed out. I'll do my cardio. I don't care, but I'd be the one that would, like, go to bed late, get up early just because grind, right?
Yeah.
And, like, I didn't know how much, I didn't know how shitty I felt until I've gotten good sleep. And now, like, I'm in bed, man.
I'll reiterate that. That's exactly how I felt. It's wild. Like,
oh, man.
Like, getting by on, like, no sleep, man, you kind of feels normal, but then you're like, you start sleeping, you're like, shit. No, that's not normal to feel that way.
Oh, yeah. Like, I remember, like, you just wake up and you're still exhausted, right? And I didn't know the difference. Like you said, you just kind of get used to it. And now with sleeping so good, like, I know even, man, if I miss like an hour, I'm like, okay, that wasn't a good sleep, right? It's I noticed it for sure. So
and like I don't need caffeine or coffee to stay awake in the morning or anything like that, because if you're sleeping well, honestly, you don't need caffeine.
No,
so I mean, it could be. I do use it to help with training performance. But I think to that point, though, I mean, limiting caffeine intake that you're using just to keep you awake allows you to really leverage it when you train. So
yeah, exactly. Okay, so this guy had sent me some talking points regarding biomechanics and stuff when it comes to training. So we're gonna let him drop some knowledge bombs on us. So the first one that you had sent me. Pressure's on, man. Pressure's on.
Yeah. Do you want me to give a little bit of background on like why that's kind of my bread and butter, or
sure.
So educational background. My degree is in actually mechanical engineering, believe it or not. So a lot of my experience with statics, dynamics, all that sort of stuff is right in my coursework. I also did take some graduate level biomechanics courses. Took a kinematics human motion course in college, as well as a biomaterials class. So it's kind of in my ballpark, so to speak, if that makes sense. So understanding the physics of things is definitely useful for that side of things.
Yeah, no doubt. So the first one you had sent me was regarding the squat and why it should be viewed as more than just a glute and quad developer. Have at it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it seems to be that a lot of people are talking about, the value of the squat as a viable movement pattern. People think about it, I mean, when they're thinking about, I need to grow my quads, right? What movement should I use? I think the hack squat has gotten a lot more popular lately, and I won't lie, I think in terms of quad development, it probably is a slightly better movement than a squat. But I think if you're, missing out on that spinal loading, if you're just going for hack squats and then, a lot of you might be not deadlifting or doing heavy bent rows or anything like that. So I think you're really missing out on a lot of density that you can build through the spinal erectors via a squat. I mean, there's so much stabilization included in a squat, whether that be a high bar, front squat, low bar. And we could talk more about, what's an appropriate option, because I think a high bar and a front are probably a better option as a bodybuilder. But I think it can be overlooked that having that axial loading to have those your spinal erectors really resist lumbar flexion really builds some dense erectors. And I know from front squatting, I credit a lot of my upper back density to front squatting for sure. Like when I'm front squatting, it's like holy hell, there's some growth going on back there.
Do you have any issues with your wrists getting into a front squat?
I actually wrap my wrists, so I immediately notice like if I'm getting into end range wrist extension, I have issues. So I actually wrap my wrists. Like just keeping them like out of that like full end range extension helps me out.
Yeah, because I've seen like that's my biggest issue with front squats is getting the rack position. Like I can move weight on it, but it just like all I'm thinking about is like wrists don't snap. And I've seen guys use like straps and hold it.
Yeah, I've seen that too. Yeah, that's pretty popular.
Yeah, so
I don't think that's a bad option, really. I mean, and especially as you're a bodybuilder, so and doesn't matter how you know
exactly.
It's about stimulus when it comes down to it.
With everything you said about squats, I would agree. I think there's a reason. There was a reason up until recently that it was considered like the best lower body exercise. Right now, people are getting away from it. I think just because it's hard and scary, and like it's on your back, and you better stand back up, or shit's gonna go wrong. Right?
Oh, the fear of death is real, man.
Yeah, but I think a lot of guys that I follow that take those movements seriously, you can tell what it's done to their physique, right? Like guys that are scared to squat, scared to deadlift. They lack something, right? Sometimes it's not always as evident until you put them beside somebody that does and is strong at those movements, and you're like, okay, there's clearly a disconnect between, someone doing leg press, hack squat, lunge versus someone doing like high bar, conventional, and like Bulgarian splits. You know what I mean?
Bulgarian splits are one of my bread and butter. So
You
hit a heartstring there.
Yeah, but I think honestly,
I completely agree.
The difficulty, and it's not just from my legs standpoint. It's like you said, it's erectors, it's core, it's breathing on those exercises is half the battle sometimes, right? So I think I agree with you 100%. I think
you just build density. I think from those movements. I mean, I think density shows up. I mean, I don't think. Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with Jordan Peters. I think everyone in this realm is. But I actually don't think he does much squatting now. But you see how much he's deadlifting and rowing and all that sort of stuff. That dude is one of the densest guys like I saw he posted recently one of his videos from stage, and like you see him turn to the side, and it's just like it's dense, and you see him in like double XL shirts, and you can see his just traps and erectors and his back, just like he's like a mountain, man. So I think that's where that stuff. I mean, that spinal loading comes in huge. So and it's something that's a little different because I mean from what I understand, like especially with the lumbar spine, you don't probably want to go through a ton of flexion extension cycles as well. So you kind of have to load it in a manner that you're more so resisting flexion rather than actively extending. So and then those big movements come in handy for sure for that. So
no, I agree, man. So kids, do your squats. That's
yes,
how
sir.
we finish that.
If you want to supplement with a hack, they're great. But do both, I think.
Couple sets of 20 for accessory work, and then we'll call us, right? Next one, man. You had why direct ab training is definitely worthwhile and how it might make sense to train the rectus abdominis.
So, and I think this is another thing that's, I think, there's been some idea going around. I think that, and this gets back into like squatting and deadlifting being a good way to train the abs. I'm actually kind of in disagreement on that, especially with the rectus abdominis, because obviously, as we just touched on, like the squat and the deadlift are movements where you're actively resisting flexion.
Yep.
the the action of the rectus abdominis, meaning the six pack, the blocks, whatever you want to call it, is to flex the lumbar spine. So you're doing, like with squatting and deadlifting, you are doing exactly the opposite. You will get quite a bit of like TVA activity with squatting and deadlifting, but I do think it is a good idea if you want to build thick abs to train them directly. Another contention, and I made a post kind of about this, but another contention is a lot of people are like, "Oh no, you can't grow your abs, just get leaner." False, absolutely false.
No,
I have photos to prove it. I never had super blocky abs growing up, and now people look at me, holy heck, you have abs at like 193, and you can look at my most recent post. I mean, I have pretty favorable body fat distribution, but I can tell you right now, I did not have the size of the blocks that I have right now before I started training. They absolutely hypertrophied. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. What do you think about that?
No, I agree. It's a muscle just like everything else, right? And as lean as someone could get, if they're not developed, they're just going to kind of be, flatter, right? Whereas I'm the same vein as you. Like, I remember when I was younger, I did that ab wheel religiously. I crushed that thing.
I still use the ab wheel. I love the ab wheel.
100%. And I had like these, like I was like skinny, but I had these ridiculous blocky abs. And like, I swear to God, it was from doing that thing, because that's all I did. And now, like, huge fan of like rope crunches, loaded crunches, and then like some kind of leg raise that under load, like whether it's just your legs, depending on your strength level, or holding something little like a 5-pound dumbbell. No, I 100%, like, just like you try to grow your shoulders and your biceps, you can grow your abs. And if they're a weak point on your physique, and if they're a missing link, then you're going to want to do something about that, right? Which
I completely
agree.
Them. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's one of the areas where structure is very genetic and very variable. I mean, from person to person. So, I mean, I am fortunate in the fact that I have nice blocks and all that. But, I think even if you don't, then you can certainly grow them. And like I said, I have pictures on my page that are testament to that, because I think one of my, I can send it to you or link it, whatever. But I have a post out that I have a comparison photo between when I was like 150 pounds. It's like maybe a couple years into like more consistent, maybe 1 or so years into consistent training, versus 190 pounds.
Yeah.
That was a couple months ago. I can see abs in the 190. I barely can in the 150, and I can tell you right now, I am not leaner in the 150 photo. I am certainly not leaner.
Yeah.
I didn't put on 40 pounds of tissue.
Yeah, no.
So,
sweet. Next one, pec training and why a single arm fly is worthwhile.
Yeah, pec training. So, really, this is kind of something that I've been using a lot lately, and this year, and have grown my pecs a lot. Honestly, pecs are a very, very challenging area for me to grow. So it's kind of one of those things that, if the best person to ask on things, a lot of times, is the person who has had the most difficulty training something. Honestly, I mean, we talked quads earlier, but honestly, I'm probably a little slicker when it comes to programming and training my chest, even though my chest is not as well developed as my quads. Yeah. But anyway, so I think it's definitely worthwhile to use a single arm pec fly, and I'll explain why. So a lot of people think that you can get a huge chest from only benching, whether that be barbell incline, flat benching, machine benching, all that sort of stuff, which honestly is great stuff. Should not neglect it by any means. I think what happens though is, with those movements, you get a nice deep stretch. You get a really good stretch under load with them. The problem I think that you see with them, and when you finish a bench press, you're maybe here, right? how much further across can you bring your arm before your pec is actually fully contracted? So let's take it through. So if you take yourself through even through like a double arm fly, you're still not getting into that fully shortened position. So if you take a single arm, you can get a nice stretch, and you can actually contract. So that's where I'm fully contracted. So you can see that difference of how much further I can get my arm across my body with a single arm fly to get that full contraction. So with your heavy pressing, you're getting a lot of work in that that deep stretch position. But I think certainly adding in some single arm work where you can get into that fully shortened position, I think can be a good idea, especially for someone like me if you have trouble growing your chest. And my chest is a little more, I think, slow twitch than most, which is, I guess, a little of more of an anomaly than anything. I do actually pretty well up to like 30 rep sets, especially on like the flies, and even like 20 rep bench sets. Those are super productive for me. So your mileage may vary on that sort of side, but I think you can gain some value from fully shortening that pec and working it through a full range. In addition, obviously supplementing your heavy pressing. Don't stop heavy pressing.
Yeah,
so that stuff's great.
That's where something like cables can come in handy too, right? Because you can get that added range. That's the other thing.
You can use a cable crossover as well. Same concept. Yep. You can come and fully shorten on both sides.
Yeah, and it's when you mention that range of motion, right? People look at you like you're nuts, right? But then you explain why you would do that, and then it's okay, that actually does make sense, right? Like that's one thing that I would say this year I learned a lot about, like the why behind an exercise. Because like I'm 25, so I would say most of my knowledge in my early training years was muscle magazines and bodybuilding.com, right? So when you were to read some of that stuff, it was very bare bones. This is what you did, but there was no deeper explanation why. It was you did bench because it's a heavy press. You did flies because it's an isolation. That's as far as it got.
Yeah, that's as far as you get with it. Yeah.
But now, there's a lot of information out there about, fiber type and range of motion and stretch under load and fully shortened, like all these little things that can be overwhelming, but you have to just take it slow and kind of, pick one exercise, right? And just try to dissect it and figure out like why would I do it this way versus this way? Why maybe it might not work for me versus someone else? Like all these little things, it's a lot, but if you truly care about it, it's stuff that's worthwhile.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, exactly right. Just dissecting movements. I think another way is to go and reverse engineer from the other side. So if you're looking to really, you're saying, okay, I'm having trouble building up, I don't know, my rear delts. Look up the action of the rear delts. Just figure out what the action is, of that muscle, and then figure out, okay, this is the action. What kind of movements can I use to work that muscle through that action? Either directly through an isolation, just through that movement, like for chest, pure adduction of the shoulder. I think that's a good way to start. I think that's a really good way to, start from the bottom and then work towards finding a movement that trains that action. And I think that's a really productive way of doing things.
No, I agree, man.
From a biomechanical perspective, there it is.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, last one that you had sent me was biasing training for specific muscles towards higher or lower rep ranges based on fiber type, fast or slow.
Yep. So this is sort of something I picked up from Dr. Mike Israetel recently. He's touched on it. It's almost more of a theoretical concept still at this point, but I found it very useful in my own training. So if a muscle is more fast twitch dominant, it's going to tend to respond pretty well to heavier training. If it's more slower twitch dominant, you might benefit from higher rep sets. So I obviously had touched on how chest for me is a little slow. I think a little slower twitch than average. So I do benefit greatly from sets up to like 30 reps, metabolite work, supersetting flies into push-ups or press does great for me. On the other hand, my back, my lats specifically, I start training them over 20 reps, it's almost completely useless for me. Like, my back is super fast twitch, like, responds tremendously to work, especially in, like, the 5 to 10 range. I mean, I can probably get up to about 20 reps, but beyond that, honestly, it's not super productive. Yeah. And I guess I'll walk you through, like, how I've kind of discerned that. So in terms of, and I think I made a post on my story recently, in terms of like discrepancy between top end strength versus heavier strength. So with vertical pulling, a pull up, people look at me and like, how the hell are you doing so many reps with like 2 plates around your waist? I mean, I've done 6 reps with 2 plates around my waist, and that's at like heavier off season weight too. So, yep. Not when I'm deep into prep, but then I load up like body weight, man, like with similar execution, I don't know if I can get like 15. That might be tough for me. Yeah. I'll be completely straightforward. Like it's just difficult. And also as the reps get higher for me, it becomes more bicep dominant for me. I start doing like lat pull downs in like the 20 to 25 rep range. Honestly, like my lats just get tired. They don't get like super pumped. They don't get super like, like, holy hell, this is, it's just, I just get like tired. I don't know.
You're like, am I done yet?
But yeah, in like the 5 to 10 rep range, like I get like huge pumps, all that sort of stuff, which, I mean, it's not that many reps, and I can feel my lats just firing on all cylinders. So, yeah, and I also did run a little bit too much lighter vertical pulling late into prep, and it certainly cost me some tissue. I'll tell you that straight up. It cost me some tissue.
Yeah.
So
learn, right?
That's kind of something I picked up from Dr. Mike. But yeah, on the other end of the spectrum, I mean, certain muscle groups, 30 reps are great. Side delts especially, like that nasty, 30 rep work and,
triple drop sets,
supersets, stuff that just, makes you question your sanity. But, yeah, that's great for side delts. But at least for me, for back, it's useless.
Yeah. Like,
for me.
Yeah, something like that takes, a lot of paying attention, which probably the average gym goer, maybe even the average bodybuilder, like, is probably too much to think about. I'm trying to think of, like, for myself, if I've noticed what my body responds to. Like, I've always been low rep on deadlift, never been a fan of high reps on deadlifts from a strength perspective as well, and just enjoyment. Like, I would rather do a heavy triple than hypertrophic 10 to 12 rep range, right?
Yeah.
That's just what I like. And for me, like this year, like I've PR'd on deadlifts, which is my goal this year. I had a number I wanted in the off season.
Oh, you've been pulling some nasty numbers, man.
510 for 5 was the last big one. And I can feel like when I put my hand on my erectors, like there's depth, right? So like I'll take that to the stage, and hopefully it's different, right? I agree with you. High rep on laterals. I don't think, heavy 7s and 8s on laterals probably going to do a whole lot for me.
Yeah, I don't find them super productive. Like upright rows, maybe up like as low as 8 reps is kind of my low end for that. But that's not an upright. That's not a lateral. It's like 12 is probably my bottom end.
Yeah, I think traps is something that I've seen the higher reps has paid off. And doing like I've been doing like a kind of like a snatch grip Smith shrug with like a
Jeff Nippert style.
Yeah, with like a Y fly with like a shrug at the top. Superset those. So I'll do like kind of a 12 to 15 superset with like a 20 to 30 rep on those shrugs, and it's like every week it's there, and hopefully it, when I diet down, it's a little bit different looking.
Well, I think especially since you're doing so much of the heavy work, like heavy deads and all that sort of stuff, you're kind of getting that, that heavy loading, even if it's not, actively working, you're getting probably a decent stretch on it. So supplementing with some of that higher rep work might be productive. And then on looking back to the conversation about biasing rep ranges. I mean, some muscles you might find you don't really need to bias them a whole lot. I mean, there's only, I'd say, 2 muscles that I tend to bias a little bit more, and that's lats and or bias heavier. That's lats and calves. That's other than that, like even chest, like even though I'm a little more slow twitch dominant, I still find sets of 5 to 10 productive.
Yeah.
I think they're still productive for me. It's just, I have a wider range of reps that are productive for me. So, and most muscles I find are like that. Anywhere 5 to 30 is, that's kind of been shown in the literature. It's been talked about a lot recently, but most groups respond pretty well to all sorts of stimulus,
Yeah, as long as you're effective with it, you're right. Like there will never be a one size fits all, and
absolutely not.
Whether you do, a 30 rep bench to failure or like a heavy 5 that's damn close to failure, like that's stimulus, right? And is it perfect for you versus me? Our bodies might respond very differently, but it's a response nonetheless, right?
Absolutely. And the other thing is I use that word bias very, very particularly because, as I said, it's not like I only train in the 5 to 10 range for lats. Like I still mix in some work up to maybe 20 reps.
Yep.
But it's just biased heavier versus side deltas biased a little bit towards the higher rep ranges. So it's just, biasing a little bit one way or the other. It's nothing that's, it's not like I've tossed out the heavy work and then tossed out the light work, so, yeah.
No, for sure, man. All right, dude. We're probably close to an hour here. Anything you want to add? Any tips and tricks you want to enlighten the people with that you haven't mentioned already?
Nothing particularly offhand. I don't know, unless you have a specific.
Do you do any forearm training?
I do forearm training. Yes. Just some simple, mostly some just simple barbell or dumbbell wrist extensions on a bench. And wrist flexion as well.
Every once in a while, you'll see forearms kind of come into play a little bit. You'll see like a series of like why you should do forearm training, why forearm training's gonna take your physique to the next level, and then everybody's like, forearms, yes, I'm gonna do farmer's walk, I'm gonna do towel hangs, all this shit, and then forearms goes away again.
Yeah, it's kind of something that goes in and out. So I don't know. I think it's nice to have big dense forearms, but
thankfully, I'm not a big athlete by no means, so like my joints are small, so it makes my small forearms look bigger. So as long as I keep,
it's all relative, man. That's bodybuilding, man.
Yeah, as long as I keep some kind of deadlift and some kind of pull up in the routine, they're usually not bad. But I guarantee that if I stop doing any heavy like grip intense work, my forearms would shrink right down and look like shit. The struggle. All right, man. Where can people find you? Plug the socials.
Yeah. DC Hyperstrength on Instagram. DC Hyperstrength on Facebook. Have a YouTube channel. I have one video. DC Hypertrophy Strength. If you want to listen to me ramble about caffeine periodization, go ahead. Have at it. It's a long video. It's a rambly video. I won't lie, but I'm a rambly person. Hopefully some of what I said today makes sense.
Oh, I'm sure someone got something out of this. I did. This was great. I'm glad you were able to do this.
Hey, I'm glad to be on there. I really appreciate you having me on. Appreciate you. You do a really great job, especially on pulling together different perspectives, listening to different perspectives. Even if we disagree on something, I know I've had some comments on your posts where I say, I disagree with this, and we have a little back and forth. That's, I think, really great and really something you should be commended on because some people jump immediately to, ad hominems and attacks, and it's like, man, I'm just trying to have a discussion, get closer to the truth. So,
100%. And you know, I think we had mentioned it before, but like, there's never going to be anything perfect for everybody, right? And I think that's what deep down everybody still might be chasing, is trying to find the perfect rep range, the perfect protein dispersion throughout the day, the perfect pre and post workout macro like, you know what I mean? Like, as much as we all love this, and it goes back to what we said at the very beginning, how this is an extreme sport, we might take it too far sometimes, and like you said, people can get defensive about stuff, and yeah, I'm more than happy to have constructive discussions on things, because at the end of the day, I don't know everything, right? And if you
neither do I.
Yeah, and if you comment on a post and that gets me thinking, right? And then I make a change that makes me better, well, shit. You think I'm going to be mad at you for that? No.
I hope not. But yeah, no, absolutely. And then even when I, might come on your page or your post and disagree, like, with your, we had a little bit of a disagreement on like loose form for bent rows. Like, but even your, post made me think, well, maybe there is some value to adding that, because getting, just looking at the strength curve versus the resistance curve of a normal row, I mean, it's so much easier. You're so much stronger when the weight is further away from your body. So, sometimes, maybe getting a little bit of stimulus in that length and range might not be a bad idea, So kind of gets you thinking about things. So
exactly.
And I really appreciate that from you.
Every year, I guess you could say, is almost like an experiment, right? Like, I'm trying new things in the gym. Nutrition wise, I kind of know what works for me, so I don't get too fancy with that. But I think in the gym, like, there will always be room to try something new, to try different rep ranges and stuff. Like, this year I've been big on the heavy 6 to 10, then a back off 12 to 15, and man, like, it's worked. I'm heads and toes stronger on most, if not all, exercises, and this off season I was 10 pounds heavier with arguably similar, if not slightly better condition. So as a competitor, I don't
take that any day.
More.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it comes down to, just doing it,
Yep.
You can only, you can aim the gun for so long. You got to pull the trigger eventually. So you got to, do what you think is best and work.
Yeah, 100%, man. All right, people. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. All his social media will be linked below, so give him a follow. He posts a ton of informative stuff, and of course, documenting his own journey as well. So, man, I appreciate you coming on again, and we'll have to do this again soon.
Thank you, Leroy. Really appreciate it.
Have a good one, buddy.
You too, brother.
Bye.